Hey there, Mr. Sutton here, bringing you the IM3 8-1 Extra Practice number 2 solutions on mean, median, and mode. And for this one, we're trying to solve a puzzle. Let's take a look at that. So here's the puzzle we're trying to solve for this extra practice. We're trying to solve the riddle, what do you get when you cross the Atlantic with the Titanic? And basic idea is we have to solve all of these problems here. Once we figure out what the answer is, down below there's a bunch of letters with answers next to them. Whatever the answer is, we just cross off the letter that's above that. And then whatever letters are left over at the end of this, we'll spell out the answer to our riddle. So let's give it a shot. So here we go with problem number 1. Now this one has several parts, and they all rely on this table here that has the times of different swimmers doing a practice 50-meter freestyle. So first part here is we're asking about the mean of Mike's times. So here's all Mike's times, these 4 in this row here, and we're asking basically to average these together. So we've got 34.1 plus 33.8 plus 30.5 plus 31.6, all of those added together, and then we divide by the number of times, which is 4 in this case, and we will need the calculator for this. So here I am on the calculator. I just entered all that stuff in the numerator in, pressing enter. That's going to be 130 that I have in my numerator. Dividing that by 4 now, that ends up being 32.5, and that's going to be in seconds because each of the individual measurements were in seconds. So 32.5 seconds, that corresponds with U right here, so we'll cross that letter off, and we'll move on to the next. Now we're being asked to find the mean of Jason's times. So here's Jason's times right here, these 4. So we'll just do the same thing we did with Mike's times. Add these together, divide by 4. So 41.7 plus 40 plus 39.2 plus 38.4, all of that divided by, again, there's 4 of these, so divide by 4, and back to the calculator. So adding all that up, we end up with 159.3 in the numerator. Dividing that by 4, that's going to be about 38.8 if I round that off, and that's again in seconds, 39.8. So that's going to be over here, that's E, crossing that off. Next up, now we want the mean of the times on trial 1. So this is a little different. Instead of averaging all the times for one swimmer, we're averaging all the trial times for all 5 swimmers. So we've got 34.1, 32.5, 41.7, 29.4, and 33.9, all of that being added up. And since there's 5 of those times, we're going to divide by 5 this time around. So adding all that up on the calculator, that comes out to 171.5 in my numerator. Dividing all that by 5, that's going to be 34.3, and that again is seconds. So 34.3, let's see, that's going to be right here. That's going to be O that I'm crossing off. For part D, we're changing things up a little bit more. Now we're asking for the median instead of the mean, and we're using Ryan's times. Ryan hasn't been calculated yet. So to find the median, we have to write all of these times in order, and then take the middle value or average the 2 middle values together if there's 2 of them. So let's see, the first value for Ryan, the lowest value, is this 32.5. After that, we have 33.4, and then 33.8, there's 2 of those. Next off, we cross off the ends 2 at a time until we get to the middle. So 32.5 and 33.8 can get crossed off, and we're left with 2 items in the middle. So we have to average these, basically add them together and divide by 2. Now, I could do this on the calculator, but this one's actually pretty easy. I know that 33.6 is halfway between the 0.4 and the 0.8 here. So that's going to be my median, is 33.6. And I see that right over here with S, so let's cross that off. For part E, we're finding the median of the times on trial 4. So here's trial 4, here's the 5 times. Just like we did for Ryan's times in part D, we're going to write these numbers in order and then pick the middle value. So the lowest of the batch here, we have a 31.6, and we have another one of those as well. After 31.6, the next highest is 33.4, and then after that we have 33.8, and finally the highest of the batch, 38.4. So crossing these off two at a time, we've got the two endpoints here, and then the 31.6 and the 33.8. And that leaves us with only one item, so that item is going to be our median, 33.4 seconds. 33.4 is right here with E, so cross that off. For the final part of problem 1, they want to know the mode of all 20 times in the table. So this is asking which time appeared the most. So to do this, I'm going to start counting up how many times each of these different times appeared. And to make this as efficient as possible, I'm just going to start at the top and cross them off as I count them. So we have first off 34.1. There's only one of those in this entire table, so that's probably not the mode, so let's keep going. 33.8, we got one there. We got another one over here, so that's definitely the winner for the mode right now. We have a third one down here and a fourth one here. So I'm going to write down that appears 4 times. That's the new time to beat, so to speak. So I'm going to keep crossing things off until I either run out of things to cross off or I find something that ties this or beats it for 4 times. So 30.5, and I don't see any other 30.5, so we go on to the next number. 31.6. I see one more of those down here, so there's 2 of those, but that's way less than this mode of 4. So we're going to just keep going. 32.5, looks like that's the one of 2. There's another one right there. Again, 2 doesn't beat 4 though. 33.3 is the only one of those. And then 34, that's also unique. 41.7 is the only one. 40 is the only one of those. 39.2 is the only one. 38.4 is the only one. 29.4 appears twice, but obviously that doesn't beat 4, and this last one just appears once. So then 33.8 is going to be our mode. That appears the most out of any of these. And 33.8, that is going to be right here under this E right here. So we've crossed off a few E's already. For this next set of problems, we have the weekly salary for 10 people given in this table over here. So for the first part of this, we want to find the mean salary. So we got to be careful here. This is a frequency table. It tells us how many people have each type of salary. So we can't just add these salary numbers together and divide by 4 because they're not equally distributed amongst all these people. Only one person makes $2,400, and then there's like 5 people who make only $500. So we have to take that into account. So I am going to add all the salaries together. But what I'm going to do, for any of these salaries that appear only once, I'll just use the number itself. So we've got 2,400, we've got plus 900, because there's only one of each of those. But now for these that appear multiple times, I'm going to multiply the number of people times the salary to get the total money. So we're going to add in 3 times 600, and we're also going to add 5 times 500. Next up, the number of items is just going to be the number of people here, which we could add all these together, or they told us it was 10, so I guess we don't really need to do that, but it's 10. So now I'm going to go on the calculator and add all this stuff in the numerator. So here I am on the calculator. I've added all that numerator stuff together, getting me $7,600 total dollars made by all 10 people. And again, there was 10 of them. Dividing that by 10, I don't need the calculator for that. That's just $760, which is all the way over here, so we'll cross off the S. For part B, they want the median salary. So one way you could do this is to just write out all the salaries. So we have 2,400, 900, 3 of these 600s, and we also have 5 of the 500s. So write all those in order, pick the middle value, or average the 2 middle values. Another way you can do this, though, is to figure out what's the index number of that middle item. So a quick way of doing this is taking the total number of items, adding 1, and then dividing by 2. So 10 plus 1 over 2. This will tell us which item is our median value. So that's 11 over 2, so 5.5. Now there is no item 5.5, but what that really means is that if we were to write these in order, my median would be the average of items 5 and 6. So let me go through and actually add up how many we have. and that'll tell us where our median value falls. So after my first number here, I'm up to 1. And I know these are going in kind of reverse order, but it works fine as long as it's in one order or another. Adding this one here, we're up to 2 people. After we add in these 3 people with $600 each, we're up to 5 people. And then another 5 people brings us up to 10. So we said that we needed to average items 5 and 6 together. So 5 and 6 would be the 500 and the 600 here, so average those together. And then I could do that on the calculator, but I know that 550 is halfway between 500 and 600, and 550 is over here, so cross off P. For the last part of number 2, we want the mode of the salaries. So this is actually pretty easy to look up in one of these frequency tables. We just have to find the highest frequency in the table, which is 5, and that goes with 500. So 500 then is the mode for this one, and that is going to be S right here, so cross that off. For problem 3, there's just one question. We're told the mean weight of 32 math students is 93.8 pounds, and if they could all stand on a scale together, what would their total weight be? Well, if we already have the average, we can multiply that by the number of items. So 32 times 98.3, and that'll give us the total weight. Going to the calculator for this one though. So 32 times 98.3 on the calculator, that's going to be 3,145.6 pounds. And I can pick that out pretty quickly. That's going to be right here. Just make sure it's not this other big number. So cross off the T. For number 4, we have the pi r square bakery. Get it? Like pi r squared, like the area of a circle. Sold 869 pies during the month of January. We want the mean number of pies sold per day. Okay, well, if I take the total sold, 869, and I divide that by the number of days in January. How many days are in January? Well, that's going to be 31. So 869 divided by 31. Let me use the calculator for this. So plugging that in, that comes out to 28.0 and some change. So roughly 28 pies per day. 28 pies. Let me see here. That's right here, number I, or letter I. For number 5, we have Julie taking 5 tests in science this semester. First 3 tests, her mean score was 70%. Come on, Julie, you can do better than that. But on the last 2 tests, her mean score was 90%. Nice work. We want the mean of all 5 scores. So we have 5 items that we're adding together. So after we add everything, we're going to divide that by 5. And then there were 3 tests on which the mean was 70. We don't know what they actually were individually, but we know that if we take all of them and add them together, it should add up to whatever 3 times 70 is. So I'm going to write 3 times 70. They may have all been 70s. They might have been different. Again, this counts for that number. And then the last 2 tests, mean score was 90, so we'll add 2 times 90. So that's going to be 210 plus 180, which is 390. And then let's divide that on the calculator. So 390 divided by 5, that gives me 78. So average of 78 for all those tests. And then we have to actually cross off the letter here. So 78 goes with T, so cross that one off. For number 6, we have A Trip to the Mountains by Klink. It's interesting. He drove for 3 hours at an average speed of 50 miles an hour, and then 2 hours at an average speed of 30. We want the average speed for the entire trip. So this is a lot like the last problem we did with Julie and her test grades. We have to multiply the 3 hours by the average speed of 50, multiply the 2 hours by the average speed of 30, and then adding all that together will give us the total miles driven for the whole trip, which we can then divide by the number of hours. 3 plus 2 gives us 5 hours for that whole trip. So again, we had 3 times 50, 2 times 30. This is going to be 150 plus 60, which is 210. Dividing that by 5, I could probably do that in my head. 200 divided by 5 is 40. 10 more divided by 5 is another 2, so 42 miles an hour on average for that whole trip. And that's going to be this item right here, O. For number 7, we had Rex doing a little experiment. He tosses 3 coins together and counts the number of heads and puts that information in this table for each of the 25 times that he attempts this. Based off this, we just want to know the mode, which outcome happened the most. So there's really 4 different outcomes that you could get tossing these 3 coins. One outcome is that you don't get any heads, and then another is you get 2, and then, or 1 rather, and then 2, and then 3. So 4 different outcomes. So I'm going to make a frequency table that has these different 4 outcomes, and I'll just count up the number of times this actually happens. So how many times did Rex toss it and get 0 heads? So 3 tails. So counting the zeros here, we've got 1, 2, 3. So not a whole lot out of 25. How many times did he get 1 head? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the winner so far. And then for 2, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're tied now, but then 9, 10. I think this is probably going to be the winner. There's not a lot of things left, but let's count up the 3s. We had 1, 2, 3, 4. So the mode is far and away going to be this 2 here, 2 heads. So 2 is going to be right here. This is another T getting crossed off. The next couple problems are based off of Marissa, who took 4 100-point tests in math and scored a mean of 89%. We want to know firstly how many points she has scored altogether on the 4 tests. Well, there were 4 and the mean was 89. So we can do 4 times 89 to get that total. And I could probably do this without a calculator. 4 times 90 would be 360, so 4 less than that is 356. And 356 is going to be right here under E, so cross that off. For part B, we want to know what score Marissa needs on test number 5 to get the mean of all 5 scores to be 90. Well, what we're going to need to do is take the 4 quizzes she's had so far and add a mystery number in there, and then divide all that by 5 and hope it comes out to 90. Now we know what she got on the first 4 of them. Altogether, we calculated this in part A, that she got a 356. So there's some number I can add to 356 and then divide that by 5, and I'll get 90 out of it. So let me just represent this as 356 plus x in the numerator. And then again, if I do all this, this whole thing should equal out to 90. At this point, all I have to do is solve for x. So 5 times 90 is going to give us 450. And then 450 minus 356, that's going to be 94. So Marissa needs a 94 to average 90. And 94 is right here. That's L. Let's cross that off. And I believe we've crossed off everything we can. It's time to go ahead and solve the puzzle. So the original riddle again was, what do you get when you cross the Atlantic with the Titanic? And the answer is, let's see here, we got an H, we got an A, an L, an F, a W, an A, and a Y. You get halfway. Oh, that's in poor taste. Well, till next time, Mr. Sutton signing off.